I think a little bit of that. I mean, I think the one thing you can absolutely say is that you've had calming measures from the central bank. They've added a little bit of liquidity, and you've also had some kind of control as to the scale of foreign exchange deals that can be done with Turkish banks.
Is it enough?
Net has actually led to a deal of calming.
Is it enough?
No, I don't think it is. If you look over the course of the last few months, it's been fairly clear that the market's been pricing in 500-600 basis points of rate hikes here, and we're nowhere near that. So I think if they're really going to have to do something aggressive to support the currency, it's going to have to be 500 basis points plus easily.
If they gave back the pasture now, finally, would that help, or is that horse already left the barn? Now you really need shock therapy in the financial markets.
I think you need shock therapy. I mean, the point about the pastor story is it's part of a far broader issue. You know, over the course of the last 3 years, you've seen this move steadily away from good diplomatic relations with the US, pivoting towards Russia, pivoting towards Iran. The pastor story is part of a far broader issue. So, yeah, I think that particular issue is already come and gone. The idea that we get a rolling back on the tariffs, I'd be surprised, to be quite honest.
How bad is the contagion in the rest of the emerging markets, and do you expect it to be bad enough or big enough that we see any kind of impact in the developed markets beyond what we've already seen?
So I think that's the key question. I mean, clearly, there is a degree of contagion. You see in some of the currencies like the South African rand come under pressure. But the reality is that the links between Turkey and the rest of the global markets are perhaps less direct than perhaps you might think. So I don't think that the direct impact is going to be that strong. It's the indirect impact. It's the people starting to look about who's next with sanctions. Is it India? Is it Indonesia? Is it about the guys that have already got high levels of foreign dollar denominated debt that they start worrying about rising yields? Is it about how the guys who have already had sanctions against them start to react back? Yeah, what does Russia do next? What does Iran do next? That, I think, is the indirect story here. And that's, if it's going to come back into the developed markets, that's where it's going to come from. There were some interesting kind of comments from Iran over the weekend. We had some fairly strong comments from the Russian Prime Minister on Friday. And of course, Russia quietly has been reducing its exposure to the US since the sanctions started in April. So there's clearly stuff going on that does have a broader impact.